Hello and welcome to Recap Desk. In today's episode, I'll be discussing a 2011 film called The Intouchables, which is a biography, comedy, and drama all rolled into one. However, I must warn you that there will be spoilers ahead, so be careful if you haven't watched it yet. The story begins with Driss driving his employer Philippe through the streets of Paris, and when the traffic becomes too monotonous, Driss decides to break the speed limit and drive recklessly, swerving between cars and disregarding traffic signals. This results in the police pursuing them, and Driss bets €100 that he can evade them. However, the cops catch up to them by setting up an ambush under a bridge. Despite this setback, Driss remains confident and bets €200 that he can secure them an escort. The police force Driss out of the car and he begins to act offended, claiming that Philippe cannot move and he was rushing him to the hospital. The officers discover a wheelchair in the trunk of the car, providing evidence to support Driss's claims. Upon approaching Philippe, they notice him pretending to convulse, realizing that it was all a ruse. However, due to the urgency of the situation, the police overlook Driss's previous transgressions and offer to escort them to the hospital. To commemorate his victory in the bet, Driss plays September by Earth, Wind and Fire, and when they reach the hospital, he enjoys a smoke with Philippe as soon as the police leave. Driss assures Philippe that he will take care of the situation and whisks him away before the hospital staff can discover them. The bond between Driss and Philippe began many months ago. Philippe and his assistant, Magali, are conducting interviews to find a new caregiver for him. However, they are not having much luck as all the candidates have given either bland or awkward responses to their questions. Suddenly, Driss arrives, ignoring the fact that it is not his turn yet. He is only there to have some documents signed, stating that they will not hire him so he can collect unemployment benefits. Driss is straightforward and somewhat impolite, even going as far as to flirt with Magali. However, Philippe finds his mannerisms amusing and requests that he return the next day to collect his signed papers. Driss returns to his humble neighborhood where he attempts to take a bath. His younger siblings interrupt him frequently, but he manages to finish in time thanks to his older, more responsible sister Mina. While waiting for their mother to arrive, Driss glances out the window and notices his brother Adama exiting a questionable vehicle. After the boy enters the apartment, he merely states that he was at school and swiftly exits after collecting his bag. This behavior leads Driss to become even more convinced that his brother is involved in something nefarious. Later in the day, their mother arrives, and Adama presents her with a stolen Fabergé egg as a gift, claiming that he was on vacation when questioned. Upon seeing Adama, their mother is not pleased because he had been gone for 6 months without any communication and now he shows up at her doorstep as if it were a hotel. She is fed up with his constant lies and the fact that she has other children to care for, so she orders him to leave and never come back. Driss spends the night hanging out with friends from his neighborhood while smoking and snacking. The following day, he returns to Philippe's home to collect his papers. The housekeeper, Yvonne, greets him and gives him a tour of the house while explaining Philippe's daily routine. She shows Driss the room that he would have for himself, complete with a private bathroom. Driss cannot help but stare at the bathtub before being led to see Philippe, who not only offers him the signed papers but also a job opportunity. Driss agrees to take on the 1-month trial, and Philippe challenges him by betting that he won't last more than 2 weeks. Once he brings his belongings to his assigned room, Driss is instructed on how to take care of Philippe. This involves learning how to stimulate his legs, how to properly transfer him into his wheelchair, and how to assist him in showering and changing his clothes. The situation becomes uncomfortable for Driss when he realizes that he has to wear high stockings and clean Philippe's butt after he uses the bathroom. Despite his initial complaints and refusal to perform these tasks, he eventually accepts them as part of his job. Later that evening, while he is enjoying a snack on the roof, Elisa, Philippe's daughter, and her boyfriend Bastien interrupt him. They are searching for a secluded spot to spend some intimate time together, but Driss refuses to share his beer and ends up kicking them out. After some initial mistakes, Driss becomes accustomed to his daily routine with Philippe. He learns from his errors, such as giving the phone to Philippe instead of putting it to his ear and forgetting the baby monitor while bathing. Driss also discovers how to organize Philippe's mail, separating the letters he opens from the private ones he is not allowed to read. When he comes across a flyer for female escorts, Driss decides to create a separate file for them instead of throwing them away. Despite his responsibilities, Driss still manages to have some fun. He continues to flirt with Magali, though unsuccessfully, and occasionally calls escorts to join him in bed. One morning, Yvonne enters Driss' room to reprimand him for being late and discovers some hazardous weapons in his bag. However, she chooses not to mention them just yet. Driss' task for the day is to chauffeur Philippe around. He declines to transport him in the back of a van like a piece of cargo and instead opts for one of the luxurious cars that are rarely used. At first, Philippe believes that taking the luxurious car is impractical and insists on being pragmatic. However, he soon becomes enthusiastic about the idea of a quicker and more enjoyable ride. Yvonne, on the other hand, remains unimpressed. As they attempt to leave the building, a neighbor parks in their entrance, disregarding the "no parking" sign. Without delay, Driss confronts the neighbor, gripping his shirt and warning him until he moves the car out of the way. Philippe is impressed by Driss' decisive actions with the neighbor, but Yvonne remains unimpressed. They visit a museum where Philippe intends to purchase a piece of art that Driss believes is not worth the money, a mere red stain on canvas. Later, Philippe meets with a relative who expresses concerns about Driss' violent tendencies, causing Philippe to ponder over his decision to hire Driss. Driss has come to realize that he has a criminal record, but Philippe does not seem to mind. Philippe appreciates Driss for not pitying him and for being able to joke around with him. After yet another unsuccessful attempt to flirt with Magali, Driss dines with Yvonne in the kitchen while Philippe dictates a letter to Magali. Yvonne turns off the baby monitor, claiming that it's a private conversation. She proceeds to disclose that Philippe has been corresponding with a woman named Eleonore, and these are the letters he had not allowed Driss to open. Philippe has never met Eleonore in person, and their relationship is strictly through letters. During the night, Driss teases Yvonne about the attention she receives from the gardener. Later on, while trying to sleep, Driss hears strange noises coming from the baby monitor, indicating that Philippe is struggling to breathe. Driss cannot ignore Philippe's distress, so he goes to his room and comforts him with gentle words and a damp cloth to wipe his face. Although Philippe eventually falls asleep, he wakes up shortly after, gasping for air. Without hesitation, Driss places Philippe in his wheelchair, covers him with blankets, and takes him for a walk by the river. This is the first time in a while that Philippe has seen Paris at night, and he feels more at ease. During their walk, Philippe confides in Driss that the medication he takes can only do so much, and he often experiences phantom pain. As they pass by some girls walking by, Philippe opens up to Driss and shares that due to his condition, he is unable to sexually pleasure a woman. However, he still derives pleasure from having his ears massaged since they are sensitive areas. When the phantom pain threatens to reoccur, Driss offers Philippe a joint to ease his discomfort. Although Philippe is hesitant at first, he ends up enjoying it. Later, they went to a restaurant, where they had a good time laughing and eating together. Philippe then opens up to Driss about his life story. He tells Driss how he met his wife while they were still students, and how they struggled with her medical conditions that led to her having 5 miscarriages. Eventually, she was diagnosed with a terminal illness that was incurable. They then decided to adopt Elisa. Philippe loves competitions, extreme sports, and speed, and that's when he discovered the thrill of paragliding. Philippe's spinal injury happened when he was paragliding in bad weather. Although he is now in a wheelchair, he believes that his real disability is living without his wife. After some lighthearted banter, Philippe realizes that Driss has passed his trial period and is officially hired. However, his first task is to retrieve a Fabergé egg that Philippe stole. This egg was a gift from his wife, and he has 25 of them, one for each year of their marriage. The next day, Driss talks to Mina when she's leaving school. She is a little upset that he has not been answering her messages, and she also tells him that the police have been calling their home. Afterwards, Driss goes to see Adama, who admits to being caught with 30 grams of something. Driss offers to take him out to lunch, but Adama declines and gets into a suspicious car that was parked nearby. Later on, Driss is present when Philippe dictates a letter to Magali for Eleonore. Driss finds the language boring and thinks that Philippe should be more straightforward. He is surprised to learn that Philippe has been corresponding with Eleonore for 6 months, but they have never exchanged pictures. Driss finds Eleonore's phone number on one of the letters and decides to call her. Philippe is hesitant to talk on the phone, but Driss insists, and they have a great conversation. Philippe begins to call her frequently, even during an opera performance that he and Driss attend. Driss finds the costumes funny and makes jokes about them. The following day, Driss persuades Philippe to exchange pictures with Eleanor and selects a photograph of him in a wheelchair. While Philippe is painting later on, Elisa enters his room and asks him for cigarettes. She ridicules him for attempting to be artistic, which angers Philippe, causing him to throw her out. Philippe then visits Yvonne, who is in the process of changing the selected picture from the one of him in the wheelchair to one of him before he was paralyzed. She conceals the photo in the escort file just as Driss arrives, complaining about Elisa and advising Philippe to discipline her, which Yvonne agrees with. Philippe consents to speaking with Elisa but is taken aback when Driss reveals that he has been painting. As time passes, Philippe and Driss' friendship deepens, and they spend more time together. Driss takes Philippe to play in the snow and accompanies him when he goes out for a run. Philippe helps Driss get his first suit and even scolds his daughter while Driss listens through the baby monitor. When Driss finishes his first painting, he shows it to Magali, who slaps him when he tries to kiss her. However, Philippe admires the painting and promises to try and sell it for him. They enjoy each other's company, doing things like getting a faster car, smoking joints, and even hiring escorts together. But when Philippe's birthday arrives, he isn't thrilled about it. He puts up a facade of surprise as they throw a party, and he has to interact with relatives who only come to check if he's still alive. Philippe considers it all rather dull. During Philippe's birthday party, Driss notices that Elisa is missing and eventually finds her in her room, crying after taking some of Yvonne's pills in an attempt to end her life. She tells Driss that she's upset because her boyfriend broke up with her and called her a derogatory name, and she asks Driss to talk to him. Driss agrees to do so for a fee. Meanwhile, Philippe is showing Driss painting to one of his relatives and manages to sell it for €11,000. Afterward, Driss returns to the party and talks to Yvonne, who reveals that Magali is currently in a tumultuous relationship with someone named Fred, which gives Driss hope. As the party winds down, Philippe shares with Driss some of the most significant classical music pieces, but Driss responds only with jokes. Then, Philippe puts on Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire on his iPod, and starts dancing right in the middle of the room. Driss is an exceptional dancer, and he encourages everyone at the party to join in the fun, which Philippe finds delightful to watch. Later, Driss opens the latest letter from Eleanor while putting Philippe to bed. She has sent a picture of herself and suggested that they meet next week when she visits Paris. On the day of the date, Yvonne and Driss spend time picking out the perfect outfit for Philippe. Since Yvonne will be taking him to the date, Driss takes a day off to visit Bastien. He threatens Bastien until he agrees to apologize to Eliza, bring her croissants every day, and fix his hair. Later on, Driss goes to his mother's workplace, but he doesn't approach her and just watches from a distance. Meanwhile, Yvonne and Philippe are eagerly waiting for Eleanor at a restaurant, but she arrives an hour late. Eventually, Philippe gives up and calls Driss to pick him up, not realizing that Eleanor arrives at the same time. Later that night, Philippe surprises Driss by taking him on his private plane and giving him the money he earned from selling Driss's painting, which makes him incredibly happy. The next day, they head to the countryside, where Philippe decides to go paragliding and convinces Driss to join him. Driss initially refuses to talk about his family, but Philippe's curiosity and persistence eventually lead him to reveal the truth about his background. Driss tells Philippe that Adama is not his biological brother and that the people he thought were his parents are actually his aunt and uncle. Meanwhile, Adama arrives and is scolded by Driss for not revealing what's been going on in his life. Driss calls Mina to reassure her and then puts Philippe to bed, who isn't yet sleepy, and engages Driss in conversation about his family. Driss reveals to Philippe that Adama is not actually his brother and his parents are not his biological parents. He was brought to France from Senegal when he was 8 years old because his adoptive parents were unable to have children of their own. Driss' real name is Bakary Bassari but was given the name Idris because there were other children with the same name. His aunt was able to conceive later, and he had more siblings. Philippe points out that Adama needs discipline, so he decides to fire Driss and let him go back to his family. The following morning, Driss prepares to leave after Bastien has brought Elisa her daily croissant and apologized to her. As he is saying his goodbyes, Magali approaches him to bid him farewell as well. When he tries to hit on her, she introduces him to her girlfriend Fred and he quickly backs off. Before leaving, Driss returns the baby monitor to Yvonne and playfully accuses her of lying about Magali's interest in him. In return, Yvonne hands him the escort file he had been working on, but he is disappointed to discover that the picture he had chosen has been removed. Driss discards the escort file, but he decides to keep the picture for himself. As he exits the house, he notices a car obstructing the entrance and asks the driver to move it, despite no longer working there. Adama confronts him about it, but Driss argues that it's a matter of principle. Meanwhile, the brothers go to pick up their mother from the station. Philippe, on the other hand, has dinner with his new caretaker, who is dull and uninteresting, leading Philippe to leave the table without even taking a bite. Philippe remains unhappy with his new caregiver and often expresses his negative feelings towards him. One night, when he experiences phantom pain, he refuses help from the staff in the house. Yvonne calls Driss to come and help him. However, this leads to a series of events, including being chased by the police and eventually being taken to the hospital. Despite this ordeal, Driss takes Philippe to the coast where he finds solace in the view of the sea. After grooming Philippe's long beard, Driss takes him to a restaurant for lunch, but he has to leave because Philippe's companion for the day has arrived. Driss wishes him good luck and returns his lucky egg before departing. Initially worried about being alone, Philippe is pleasantly surprised to see that his date for the day is Eleonore. She is thrilled to see him and is not bothered by his wheelchair. The actual Count Philippe Pozzo di Borgo now resides in Morocco, where he has started a new life with his second wife and 2 daughters. The real Driss, actually called Abdel Yasmin Selou, has his own firm and is also married.